Hello, Tomlin here, and today I'm going to be answering some of your questions. All right, first question. Does the sound we hear on the videos coming out of the harmonica sound the same as the sound you as the player hear? I've been trying with your simplest stuff, and although I think I'm getting it right, it always sounds buzzier and harsher / brighter than listening to you. I have a Hohner Special 20. So yes, it's virtually identical, especially when I'm using a microphone like this, or I'm using the lavalier microphone on my collar. It sounds very similar to what I'm hearing. So it's normal that when you're playing along with me, you're not sounding like that yet. There are a few things that you need to think about. You need to think about, for starters, relaxing as much as possible when you're playing. Relaxing is a big theme in harmonica and most instruments, to be honest. But really trying not to force the air through the instrument, because if you're playing with tension and you're sucking rather than breathing naturally, it'll sound a lot thinner. But if you play more relaxed, it'll sound a lot more open. And then another part of the tonal stack, as it were, is your hands. A lot of people really don't think about what they're doing with their hands, and you end up just having this as your resonant chamber. But the hands direct so much of the projection of the harmonica and add a lot to the sound. So yeah, bear that in mind. It will come, but yeah, it sounds the same to me. My E flat, E, and F harmonicas all seem to need a bit more air than the lower keys. Is this normal? All three are different makes, but the F is a special 20. Okay, so first of all, this is totally normal to find that there's a difference between the different keys of harmonicas. So if you're jumping from a C harmonica up to an F harmonica, that's quite a big change of range, and they're going to feel different. And if you play the F harmonica in exactly the same way that you were playing the C harmonica, you're going to feel that it's fighting you. And the reason for that is that every hole on every harmonica wants to play a certain note, and we want our vocal cavities, so that's the shape of the insides of our mouths, to be tuned to the right shape to play that note the most efficiently possible. That's why lower key harmonicas feel like you have to really open up your mouth and your throat sometimes on the really low notes to get a really nice resonant sound. And the higher key harmonicas, you need to make your vocal cavity smaller. But before you start thinking, I don't know how to make my vocal cavity smaller, don't worry about it. The main thing is to get experience playing a whole bunch of different keys of harmonica, and your body will start to relax and will try and do things the most efficient way possible. So really focus on relaxing, and then your body will do the rest. Okay, next question. How often a day do you practice, and do you have set times for practice? So this is a fantastic question, and I have to say that this has been different many times over the last 20 years of playing music. There have been times when I've practiced a huge amount every single day. I remember when I left school, I was practicing 6 to 8 hours every day, and that was just something, that was what I did. That was my job, as it were. And more recently, I have 2 young children under the age of 5, so I've practiced a lot less. But over the last couple of months, I've started practicing more, and I've got into a good routine. So right now, my routine looks like this. I do most of my work in the mornings, and then in the afternoon, after lunch, I make sure I've got clean teeth. That's very important. And I practice for an hour, and I do that 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And for me, it's really important to tie my practice to a specific time of day so that I can turn it into a habit. It's the last thing I do my work day before the kids come back from nursery, so that I can then know where it locks into my routine. But that could be different for you. That's just where I'm at the moment. If I can practice 15 minutes a day, then I'm happy. It's better than nothing. But trying to maintain an hour a day, 4 days a week is great for me at the moment, but that's just my practice routine. Okay, next question. Are there any instruments that you enjoy playing more than harmonica? So my first instrument was guitar, and I am still massively in love with guitar. But actually, I only started playing harmonica because I had an injury that led to me having to take nearly 2 years off from guitar. So I wanted to make music, so I decided to learn harmonica because I couldn't play guitar. So guitar is my first love, and harmonica is my second love. It's definitely close, though. It's closer these days than it ever used to be. All right, next question. Okay, what keys in order are good to start with? So generally, it's easier just to start on a C harmonica. That's what most of the educational material is provided on. And it's also the mid-range of the harmonica. So it's the easiest to play over most of the notes. It's harder to blow bend, but apart from that, it's a pretty good place to start. And then generally, you only actually need 6 keys of harmonica for 90% of applications. If you want to play with absolutely anyone in any scenario, then you'll want all 12 keys. But the 6 keys that I would get, and this is the order I would get them in, is starting with a C, then we go to either an A or a D, then I would get a B flat, and then finally I would get an F or a G. In whichever order you want, and then you'd end up with those 6, and that will cover most bases. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Next question. Will a year of playing the harmonica with the right technique be enough to make bends? So this is a great question because it kind of points to a lot of people's worries and anxieties around learning an instrument, which is how long will it take? And the quick answer is that it's impossible to answer that question. There are some people who can bend the first day they pick up the harmonica, and there are some people who it takes years for. If you have good technique and you are lucky, most people can do it quite early on, and a year seems quite conservative. But some people take longer, and that's totally fine. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. I can't actually remember how long it took me to bend. And I'm struggling to remember if it was difficult or if it was hard. There were certain elements of bending that I found extremely hard. Bending in tune, hitting bend straight on. Some of the lower bends, like 3-draw whole step bend, was a total pain. I remember working on the 2-draw whole step bend a lot, but I don't remember how long it took. And I think when you look back, you won't really care. Some people do it really quickly, other people don't. You're just going to have to try it out and see. Sorry. All right. Next question from one of my students. What is the meaning of life? Obviously, it's playing blues harmonica. Duh. Do you dream? And if so, what are your dreams? The dream that I have the most regularly is arriving at a gig, about to play, and realizing that I don't know the set. And I just have to try and throw something together on stage. So that is a very common recurring dream for me. All right, next question. Can playing harmonica be affected or aggravate jaw issues like TMJ, or can it be a case of being too tense while playing? I'm not giving medical advice, but this is just general advice about playing any instrument, and I have a lot of experience around repetitive strain injuries in general. That's why I had to stop playing guitar for nearly 2 years. If you're playing with tension, you can get repetitive strain injuries, and I have actually had students who have had injuries from practicing too much with too much tension early on in their playing. So gradually build up how much you play, build up your stamina bit by bit, and try to really relax while you're playing. And a good way to tell whether you're relaxed is to play in front of a mirror and just look and see if there are any little obvious signs of tension. I had a student once who came in and they could overblow and overdraw every single note on the harmonica, and they could bend every note and everything was in tune, but it all sounded really bad. The tone was appalling. And when I put him in front of the mirror, he was bent up like this with so much tension, and he had no idea that's what he was doing. And so we worked a lot on just relaxing the shoulders and trying to play as freely as possible. So yeah, be very careful. And I'll add, if you have any pain whatsoever, please take a break. I know it's frustrating, but you can aggravate these things, and then they're much harder to come back from. And I'm genuinely speaking from experience here, so please be very careful and do seek out medical help sooner rather than later. All right, next question. Do you have a John Popper tattoo? No, I don't. I don't have any tattoos, I'm afraid. No John Popper tattoos. That might be quite cool. It's not really my vibe, though. All right, next question. How long did it take you to be confident enough to jam with a band on stage? That's a great question. I had a slightly weird start to my performing with other people journey. So I played 1 or 2 gigs when I was 15, 16 as a guitarist, and that was really it. But it wasn't until I moved to Edinburgh, Scotland, that I started busking. And I started busking very soon after I started playing harmonica. So I essentially practiced playing harmonica on the street with my friends. So when things started getting more serious and we started getting booked for gigs and doing more and more live performances, like serious live performances, I'd already had a lot of experience just practicing in public. So I felt comfortable going to jam sessions and playing with a band on stage. But it took me a while, is what I'm trying to say, but it was condensed. We had a very solid year in 2008 of just going out and busking every single day, unless it was horrendous weather, which, to be fair, in Scotland, it quite often is. And then, jamming still can make me nervous. It depends on the scenario. If I'm the only harmonica player in the building, I'm a lot more confident. But if I'm at a jam session where there are other harmonica players, then it's always a little bit more nerve-wracking, mainly because I want to try and impress them. I want them to think that I'm doing something fun. And because I'm thinking about that stuff, I get in my own way. But the more you do it, the more relaxed you become. And I have, at this stage, probably got 1,000 gigs under my belt. So I'm definitely a lot more comfortable than I was. But it takes time. All right, next question. Would you consider branching out the type of content you make to reflect your other interests? I think about this all the time. And I would love to have a channel for everything that I'm into, because music is a big part of my life. But I'm also a huge coffee nut. I love photography. I also love vintage movies from the 80s and 90s. There are so many things I'd like to do videos on. Some of them are extremely nerdy, though. All right, another question from one of my students is, most impactful moment since you started harmonica? I have to say that this was a completely amazing, it's like the moment that comes back to me every time I think about this kind of thing. So I, as a very kind of arrogant, younger player and teacher, thought that I could invite all of my favorite harmonica players here to Scotland to come and teach at my harmonica workshop, which is completely insane because they had no idea who I was, and everyone I asked came, which is super cool. And one year I did it, Ronnie Shellis came over. Shout out to Ronnie. He's a good friend. If he's listening to this, hi, Ronnie. And he came to this workshop. He did an amazing job. He's such a nice dude, so easy to work with. And one of his students from the UK came to the workshop because he was teaching. And he got up on stage with Ronnie at the jam session in the evening. And then afterwards, he came off stage. This was a slightly older gentleman, seemed very kind of tough guy, very nice guy, like a dude. And he was in tears, and he came up to me and he said, Tomlin, that was like my life's ambition was playing on stage with Ronnie. So thank you so much for making that happen. And to me, that was it for being a musician and especially a teacher, seeing people have those experiences that they never thought they would have when they started learning harmonica. That's amazing. And anytime I'm not sure about what I'm doing with my life, when I think back at things like that, hot damn, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I think this is the last question. And I did get a lot more questions than this, so I apologize if I didn't get to your question. I'll probably end up doing another one of these, or we might even do a live stream. Comment below if you want me to do a live Q&A. That might be fun. So this is, how can I improve my bend? This is a great question. A lot of this kind of stems down to really understanding how a bend works and what you're doing internally. And I think that's a great first step. So when you are bending notes, and I'm going to go very quickly on this, we're starting with a clean note. So for example, the 4 draw on our C harmonica. And your vocal cavity is a certain shape and size. And when you want to bend that note down, you are lowering the pitch of that note, of that 4 draw. And so that means making your vocal cavity bigger. So you're pulling back and opening up to tune to that note. And whatever bend you're playing, just like with the clean notes, you're going to have an optimum mouth cavity size and shape to get to that. So if you can bend at all, the best thing to do is to spend a lot of time practicing trying to play with the least amount of effort possible. At the beginning, we generally all use a lot of effort to get the bends. You don't need effort. It's not necessary. So practice trying to play it as quietly as possible and trying to, once again, relax as much as possible. Relaxing is paramount for harmonica and bending and all the techniques. So we relax and we play with as little effort as possible and try holding the bends. Because a lot of people, when they first start bending, they hit the bend, they're like, I bend. And what you need to do is get good at holding the bend. Imagine the difference between doing one press up or doing a 1 minute plank. The 1 minute plank is a lot harder than one press up because you are holding a position. So hold that bend for as long as you can. And if it's starting to feel a bit weak and sound a little bit wobbly, you can take a little break and start again. And just do that for a few minutes every day, and you'll get stronger and stronger. And your bends will get smoother. And do that on one hole, then do it on another hole, and just gradually build up your repertoire of bends. And this will take a decent chunk of time. Everyone's still working on their bends, even the pros. We all still work on our bends, it's important. And do it over a big variety of keys, because bending on a C harmonica feels very different to bending on a G harmonica. Because it's a different note, so you're tuning your vocal cavity to a different note. And if I go up to my F harmonica, that feels very different. So jump around between all these different keys and it will become more and more natural. And just give yourself a few minutes every day for your bending practice and you will get there. Plus, I have a very fun bending video coming out soon, so keep your eyes out for that. I think you'll find that interesting. All right. Thank you so much to everyone who posted their questions on YouTube and Instagram. It's so cool. I love having a bit of interaction with you. And I'm sorry that I didn't answer all the questions. There were so many great ones. I'll probably do a round 2 at some point. If you want me to do that, just post a comment below. And if you want me to do a live Q&A session, if that would be fun, just post a comment below. And yeah, thank you so much. Hit and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Happy harping.